How did a map drawn in 1513 show Antarctica's coast, centuries before anyone officially discovered the continent? And more disturbingly, why does it show the land beneath the ice? This map shouldn't exist, but it does, and it might be the most dangerous piece of parchment in human history. The map that shouldn't exist. Imagine finding a map from over 500 years ago that appears to depict Antarctica. Not just the shape, but the continent as it might have looked without its ice. A map drawn centuries before Antarctica was even discovered. Before satellites, before sonar, before we even knew what the bottom of the world looked like. This isn't science fiction. This map exists. It's known as the Piri Reis map, named after an Ottoman admiral who compiled it in 1513. Since its discovery, the map has raised one unsettling question. How could anyone at that time have mapped the Antarctic coastline, let alone one buried under thousands of feet of ice? And if this map shows what it seems to, then someone had knowledge far beyond their era, maybe even beyond ours. The origins of Piri Reis, the story of the Piri Reis map, begins in 1929. Hidden in the archives of Istanbul's Topkapi Palace, a strange piece of gazelle skin parchment was found. On it was a partial map of the world, inked with incredible detail and dated to 1530. The creator, Piri Reis, a brilliant Ottoman admiral, navigator, and map maker. But Piri Reis didn't claim credit for everything on the map. In his notes, he said it was compiled from approximately 20 source maps. Some were Greek, others Arab. Some, he claimed, were from the time of Alexander the Great. And most intriguingly, some were allegedly charts used by Christopher Columbus himself. Piri Reis said he simply copied what earlier sources had shown. If true, then the mystery isn't just the Piri Reis map, it's the older maps he copied from. Where did those come from? And how could they depict lands unknown for centuries to come? Antarctica, without ice? What makes the Piri Reis map infamous is a particular stretch of coastline it shows near the bottom, one that closely resembles Queen Maud Land in Antarctica. But there's a catch. Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820, and its subglacial coastline, that wasn't revealed until the 1950s, thanks to seismic and radar technology. And yet, somehow, the Piri Reis map appears to depict a section of that ice-covered continent in astonishing detail, without the ice. Even in the 1500s, mapping a coastline was no small feat. Longitude couldn't be measured accurately, and voyages to the far south were unheard of. So how did this map, compiled centuries earlier, get it right? Coincidence? Misinterpretation? Or something weirder? Hapgood, Einstein, and Earth in flux in the 1960s, a controversial theory emerged. Charles Hapgood, a professor and author, proposed in his book, Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings, that Earth's crust may have shifted thousands of years ago. His theory, called crustal displacement, suggested that entire continents moved suddenly, placing Antarctica in a more temperate zone at some point in prehistory. According to Hapgood, this might explain how ancient civilizations, possibly seafaring ones, could have mapped Antarctica before it was buried in ice. At first, mainstream science scoffed, but then Albert Einstein added his name to the conversation. Einstein wrote the foreword to Hapgood's book, stating the theory should not be rejected outright. Einstein believed that humanity's understanding of geology was incomplete, and that forgotten knowledge from past civilizations could someday reshape what we think we know about the planet. If Hapgood was wrong, he was bold. But if he was right, then everything we've learned about ancient history might be missing a critical chapter. Einstein's endorsement wasn't casual. In his letters, he wrote often about the fragility of knowledge. He believed civilizations didn't always progress in a straight line. Sometimes they fell backward. Technologies were lost, discoveries forgotten. And what we rediscover today may have once been common knowledge. To Einstein, Hapgood's theory resonated because it didn't just propose a geological shift. It hinted at a civilizational one. History is written by the survivors. But what happens when those survivors lose the script? What if the truth was never erased, just misplaced? The idea that human beings may have reached levels of understanding only to be wiped out by cataclysm fits into Einstein's broader fear. That memory is our weakest link. In this light, the Piri Reis map isn't just an artifact. It's a signal, a clue that we might be missing entire chapters of human development, chapters that could change how we see our place in time. And if we're not the first, then what happened to the ones who came before? The skeptics strike back. Of course, not everyone buys into the mystery. Mainstream historians and cartographers have pushed back hard on the Piri Reis map's so-called Antarctic coastline. They argue it's far more likely a misrepresentation of South America, distorted by copying errors, artistic liberties, or lack of knowledge about the true scale of the New World. Critics point to flaws: duplicate coastlines, exaggerated landmasses, mythical islands. They say Piri Reis wasn't hiding ancient truth. He was simply working with incomplete second-hand data and filling in the blanks with guesses and imagination. Then there's the phenomenon of pareidolia, the brain's tendency to find patterns in randomness. To skeptics, that's what's happening here. People see Antarctica on the map because they want to see it. They're connecting dots that were never meant to form a picture. But if it's all just coincidence, why do so many other ancient maps also hint at knowledge that shouldn't have existed at the time? Operation High Jump, what were they really after? Just after World War II, the United States launched one of the largest military expeditions in history to Antarctica. It was called Operation High Jump. Led by Admiral Richard E. Byrd in 1946, this mission involved nearly 5,000 men, 13 ships, and 33 aircraft. The official explanation? Cold weather training and testing military equipment in extreme environments. But the sheer scale of the operation and the strange circumstances surrounding its early termination sparked decades of rumors. The mission was planned to last 6 months. It ended in just 8 weeks. Official reports blamed poor weather and equipment failure, but some claimed there was more. Much more. Admiral Byrd, in a later interview with South American journalists, allegedly warned that the US needed to prepare for potential threats from aircraft that could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. That statement sent conspiracy theorists into overdrive. Was Byrd referring to advanced Soviet technology, or something buried beneath the Antarctic ice? Something ancient? Something not human? Some theories go even further, connecting Operation High Jump to alleged Nazi expeditions in the late 1930s. The story goes that German forces found something in Antarctica, something so significant that they built underground facilities to study or exploit it. Aliens, Atlanteans, lost technology. It all sounds like science fiction, but the questions remain. Why did the US deploy such a massive force to one of the most desolate places on Earth? And why did they leave so quickly? Other maps, other clues. The Piri Reis map isn't the only oddity. In 1531, Orontius Phineas, a French cartographer, published a map that depicted a massive southern continent. What sets his map apart? It didn't just show a vague landmass. It detailed rivers, bays, and mountain ranges, features that align eerily well with modern radar scans of Antarctica beneath the ice. And he wasn't working in isolation. Gerardus Mercator, the famous 16th century mapmaker behind the Mercator projection, also charted polar landmasses that officially don't exist. But here's the kicker. Mercator claimed his sources came from older charts passed down through the libraries of the learned, a phrase suggesting these maps were preserved in secret, curated in cloisters, or copied from ancient manuscripts long lost to time. He wasn't guessing. He believed he was preserving knowledge that had nearly slipped through the cracks of history. Then there's the Zeno map from 1380. It shows Greenland and parts of North America with uncanny precision. too precise for a map made centuries before proper exploration or cartographic instruments. Some claim it came from Viking lore, but the scale and accuracy suggest something much older and much more advanced. What makes it strange isn't just its precision, but that it predates accurate long-distance navigation by centuries. No sextants, no longitude, yet it rivals modern maps. These aren't just cartographic curiosities. They feel like whispers, echoes of an older world with better tools, deeper knowledge, and a reach that stretched far beyond what history says was possible. And the anomalies don't stop with maps. The Antikythera mechanism, discovered in a shipwreck off the coast of Greece, dates back over 2,000 years. This mechanical device tracked planetary motion and predicted eclipses, a form of analog computing that, by all accounts, shouldn't have existed in that era. Constructed from bronze gears the size of coins, it resembled a steampunk computer, 2,000 years ahead of its time. Or the Baghdad battery, clay pots from ancient Mesopotamia that some believe could generate a weak electric charge. Were they primitive batteries, or just misunderstood artifacts? Each of these discoveries on their own could be explained away, but together they form a pattern suggesting that someone somewhere had access to knowledge we can't easily explain. Knowledge that's either been lost or deliberately buried. Take Phineas's map again. When modern scientists overlaid it with radar-based topographical scans of Antarctica's subglacial terrain, the similarities were striking. Mountain ranges in the correct orientation, coastal curves where the ice now extends. Even river pathways, long buried, seemed to match. These aren't vague lines or random sketches. They are geographical fingerprints, too aligned to be ignored. And Mercator's polar maps? They depicted landmasses surrounding the Arctic in a radial formation, eerily close to how the seafloor rises near the pole today. None of these cartographers could have known this, not without access to something we no longer have. The deeper you look, the harder it becomes to dismiss it all as coincidence. The question that remains: so what are we really looking at here? Maybe the Piri Reis map is just a misunderstood relic, a jumbled collection of half-accurate coastlines stitched together by a man doing his best with what he had. But maybe it's something more. Maybe it's a window into a forgotten era, a remnant of a lost tradition of map-making passed down through empires and civilizations, now erased from memory. Maybe it's a warning, a reminder that we don't know everything. That history isn't a straight line, it's a cycle. Civilizations rise, they fall, and sometimes what they knew, what they built, gets buried deeper than stone. The map challenges us to rethink what's possible, to question what we've been told is certain, and to wonder what else is waiting to be found. Because here's the truth. If just one of those ancient maps is based on real data, if just one of them contains knowledge preserved from a civilization long forgotten, then we have to rewrite the story of humanity itself, not just when we arrived, but what we were capable of, and what we lost. It's happened before. The burning of the Library of Alexandria wiped out centuries of ancient science and literature. How many breakthroughs were lost? Not because they failed, but because no one lived to remember them. Maybe the greatest mystery isn't what's on the Piri Reis map. Maybe it's why we've spent so long ignoring what it could mean. This is the ancient unknown, and maybe that's the real reason these maps bother us. Because they whisper a possibility we don't want to face, that we are not the pinnacle, that others may have reached heights we haven't, and then vanished. Think about it. If our modern civilization fell tomorrow, how long would our memory last? In 1,000 years, would anything be left? Our cities would crumble, our data would rot, satellites would fall, and without context, our knowledge might seem like myth. Maybe the Piri Reis map survived because someone tried to preserve a sliver of that forgotten world. And maybe we're only just beginning to understand what it meant to show us. What else have we lost? And what else is still out there, waiting to be found?